Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. Today's video is going to be about whether I regret decluttering these eyeshadow palettes. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. This video is going to be all about some eyeshadow palettes that I've got rid of in the past. I have years of declutters behind me, and I just wanted to have a look. Do I regret getting rid of these? Do I miss them in my collection? Yes or no? In case you're new here and you've never seen one of my videos, hi, my name is Maaike. I live in the Netherlands. I have fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, and this greatly influences my makeup preferences. I am a teacher by day, but I've been a makeup reviewer for more than a decade. I love eyeshadow palettes as a secretaries and getting the use out of my makeup. If that's something you're interested in as well, I hope you'd like to consider subscribing. So yes, I have selected 10 palettes. Again, I have a whole list of all of the palettes I have decluttered. I don't think I have rewatched all of my decluttering videos yet, so some of the more recent things I know I haven't listed, but I mean, I think I decluttered like over the years. I've decluttered like 150 different eyeshadow palettes, so I can keep this series running for quite some time, I think. So let me just get to it, because the first thing on the list is the Colourpop Dream Street eyeshadow palette. So I'll pop some pictures up on the screen so that you have an idea of what this used to look like again, because sometimes even for me, it's like, oh yeah, I used to own that palette too, especially with some of these older things. But yeah, the Colourpop Dream Street is one that I decluttered, I think not too long ago. I think not this year, but last year, I think, was when I decluttered that one. I didn't declutter the entire palette. I still have the packaging and 3 of the shades. I kept the bluey and that like duochrome shade, the teals that were in there, and I fused them together with the 9 shades of the High Tide palette, which was an old teal palette that Colourpop had around for a while, and I put them in the Dream Street packaging. So I still have the packaging and 3 of the shades, but the rest of the palette is gone. And I know that the Colourpop Dream Street palette, which was a collab with Kathleen Lights, was so many favorites, so many people's favorite Colourpop palette for years. And I certainly bought it because of the hype. However, it's one of the palettes that taught me that hype isn't always the only reason why you should be buying makeup. Because for me, it just was a little bit too warm toned. I didn't love a lot of the reddish, more orangey things that were in there. It had a couple of good neutrals, but it was definitely released at the time where we were just really into our warm tones with a pop of blue. And that's what the palette did very well. However, I have just realized that warm tones with a pop of blue isn't necessarily my vibe. Like, if I wear blues, I'll do it like this. Like, I'll go all blue. I'm even wearing a blue lip today because I thought it would be fun. I was like, you know what? I feel like doing something crazy. And I have this blue liquid lipstick from Anastasia that I don't get enough wear out of. And I was like, I'm only filming videos today. I don't have to go anywhere else. Might as well whack on a blue lip. So yeah, Colourpop Dream Street, as much as everybody liked it, I have the 3 shades I like from the palette, which is the good thing about Colourpop. They're magnetic. You can pull them apart, keep the shades you like, maybe put them in an empty palette if you like, or if you have a bunch of Colourpop palettes like I do, you can just keep mixing and matching it in other palettes and create your own, which I'm not missing this one for sure. Then the Too Faced chocolate bar. This has always been a bit controversial when it comes to my opinion about this much beloved eyeshadow palette. So I bought the chocolate bar second. I bought the Too Faced Semi-Sweet before I bought the chocolate bar. I kind of bought it to complete the collection. I'm not gonna lie, but this was, of course, raved about. Now, Too Faced at the time when this was released wasn't available where I lived. So I remember watching videos because I knew I would be traveling to the US, which was the only place where I could buy this. And at the time, the only things that were out were the chocolate bar and the semi-sweet. And I was watching videos that were comparing these two because I couldn't really decide what to do. And then I looked at it in store and I decided to pick up the semi-sweet first because it was a little bit lighter and it just had better shades for my complexion, I found. The main issue I had with the chocolate bar was that it was too deep. It was just far too dark for my fair skin, that to the point where some of the deeper shades that the palette had all just looked the same. which is something that I have just found with a lot of neutral palettes that were very much raved about at a certain point in time. Like, they were too warm toned, they were very dark, so on people with like medium skin it would look great, but on a pale face like mine, it just didn't really have the same vibe. And I actually did a video very, very early on this channel where I did a video where I think I did 3 looks with the Too Faced Chocolate Bar. And in my opinion, even though I was using different shades, it all just turned out to be this incredibly glam look, which is something I've never been super like a fan of. Like, I like a bit of glam, but I don't want it every single day of my life. And so many people were saying that the Too Faced Chocolate Bar was like their perfect everyday palette. To me, it just wasn't an everyday palette. That's why I bought it second. I like the Semi-Sweet a lot better. Also, that has been decluttered now. However, I did take a couple of the shades from the chocolate bar, because what I ended up doing is that I took a couple of my Too Faced eyeshadow palettes. I took the chocolate bar, the Sweet Peach, and the Gingerbread Extra Spice. I took out all of the shades of those 3 and I created my own new palette from those shades. That's how I did it. So the chocolate bar is no longer here. I still have like the 1 or 2 shades that I did really absolutely love from the palette, but I didn't really feel like keeping it around for that reason, and I'm definitely not missing it. In fact, that newly built Too Faced palette that I have, I like so much better than any of the Too Faced palette I ever bought, which is why I ended up decluttering the Semi-Sweet. So, and I still have my white chocolate bar. Like, the white chocolate bar is not gonna go anywhere anytime soon. I know that for sure. But yeah, the original chocolate bar was not my favorite. And then I used to have one of these things, the 120 color palette. If you were in the US, you probably had a Coastal Scents version of this, but Coastal Scents wasn't the only one doing it. And I think actually what Coastal Scents mainly did was that they bought these palettes in China and slapped their name on it. And here in Europe, Coastal Scents was really expensive to get. So we got a lot of brands doing something similar, but then it wasn't called Coastal Scents. But essentially, it was like Coastal Scents like shadows with these like little dime-sized eyeshadows that were everywhere back when YouTube was just getting started. I mean, if you were around for 2011 or 2012 YouTube, you know what I'm talking about. So I had a 120 color one, which opened up and then it had a tray, and then it had another layer of eyeshadow underneath it. And for me, I think back in the day, this was lovely because it really taught me how to play with color and do all that. But to say that this was good eyeshadow quality, it just wasn't. It was a little bit chalky. It had a very funky smell right from the start. Like, it smelled burned. It wasn't great, and I did put that on my eyes. But yeah, it was definitely something I had more so to play with and to have fun with. So as I was saying, I really enjoyed it at the time. It was a time when I was really discovering what makeup could do for me, but as I started my makeup journey a bit more more sincerely, I should say, I just started to spend a little bit more money, and I found formulas that just worked a lot better for me, and I now just have palettes that have colorful shades that I like a lot better. I think if you want a palette that is a little bit more rainbow themed, that Blend Bunny is probably the brand to go at the minute. I'm really not missing this one in my collection for sure. Another Milani palette. I chatted about a Milani palette last time, and I have another Milani palette here for you. This is the Earthy Elements palette, and I remember buying this because Milani is incredibly hard to find where I live. We can now get it quite easily online, but when I bought this, the only place where I could find Milani was in this hole-in-the-wall shop that I've mentioned before on my channel, in the place where I used to live. So I used to live in Leiden, and we had this little, it was just this little corridor of a store, and they were specializing in bringing all of these brands that we didn't know into the Netherlands. And I believe they even started to branch out, and they did some stores in other cities as well. And then the pandemic happened and they closed down, and then things just became more available online, and now there's no need for a store like that. But that's where I got a lot of these brands that were harder to get for me for a while. It was marked up greatly. It wasn't cheap. And I think that that's one of the reasons why I don't always love brands like Milani or Wet n Wild as much as some US viewers might be, because we end up sometimes paying twice as much for these things as you do when you're in the US, which is such a shame, but it's just reality. I mean, I think I paid close to 17 euros for this little palette, and it was oranges, which is not my vibe. So as much as I love the formula of this line ran very, very warm toned. I mean, this was 2016, the warm tones, the oranges. It was the moment of the Morphe 350. So this was very much on brand. So I was digging that at the time as well for myself, but I just fell completely out of love with it as much as I liked the formula. So no, I'm not missing this one either. Then the Wet n Wild Petal Pusher palette, which is this one, because I always get so many questions about people whether I like Wet n Wild. And the only times I've ever really bought Wet n Wild was when I was in the US. And then I'm very sort of like limited to what I can find at physical drugstores. I can't really then buy it online because I'm traveling. And if I do buy Wet n Wild online here, there's a lot of products that Wet n Wild does that we cannot get. The brand is now available through Beauty Bay, I know that, but it is still like more expensive than what you pay for it in the US, as I mentioned. Wet n Wild, I've tried a couple of their palettes. This Petal Pusher one was like the 8 pans, like the, what is it called? The Comfort Zone palette, I think, was the one that everybody was raving about. But I wasn't really into those shades. I liked the purples this had, and I liked it okay, but again, right now, I'm like, I have much better purples in my collection. I have some of the Glam Shop things. I've got some BH things that I really enjoy. I've got some Huda Beauty stuff. I have a lot of other purples that I just like so much better that this is really not something I'm missing in my makeup collection. Again, bought more so at the time when I was really still trying to find my feet, and it really helped me to find my feet in terms of what I like in terms of makeup, but it's not something I'm like desperate, like, ooh, yeah, I really, really regret getting rid of this one. No, I don't. And then this, I'm hoping I can still find a picture of this one, because this is very random. But another trip I take very often is that I go to London, and back in the day, I bought the palette, which was just called Famous by Sue Moxley. And it was this brand that was sold in the UK drugstore. Like, there were a bunch of UK drugstore brands around at the time. Like Me was another one that a lot of people were raving about online, and I would like be watching videos, and I would go to London, and I would pick up a couple of things, like back when Berry M, you know, the little Berry M pigment pots, when those were all the hype. If you followed any UK YouTuber, you know about those. And this was one of those things I found, and it's the first time I ever got to try a blue, brown, green shifty shade. That's the only reason why I had this palette for years. At the moment, I have plenty of multi-chromes. I got rid of this because the palette as a whole never really came together for me. It was very random. It was only 4 shades. I couldn't really do one look with it, and the look I could do with it was incredibly dark because these shades were pigmented, let me tell you. Quality-wise, it was really, really good, but it was a little bit too random for it to work as a standalone palette. So I kept it around for that blue-brown shade for years, but then I got that in other palettes, and that's why it just became superfluous in my makeup collection. So another palette that I'm not regretting getting rid of at all. At a certain point in time, I'm gonna have to make these videos only with Essence and Catrice palettes, because I've tried so many of them over the years. For a while there, I would buy every single limited edition I could get my hands on. And one limited edition palette that I got from Essence is their Wanted Sunset Dreamers palette. Again, I'll pop up a video up on the screen, or a picture of it on the screen. And if I'm not mistaken, because I didn't look it up, so that's a risk, but in my brain, the way this palette looked was a dupe for the Naked Heat. So Essence and Catrice have definitely duped a lot of more popular palettes as well. And this was stunning quality, which is why it survived quite a while in my makeup collection. But it wasn't something that I had realized just by looking at it. Like, I hadn't realized when I bought it that this was just like Naked Heat, but by Essence. But it had a really lovely, very smooth, very incredibly pigmented formula. It was like the good Essence formula that I always like compliment them on whenever they do it. They don't do it very often, but this was one of the good ones. But because it was the Naked Heat, and it was warm toned, and it was oranges and reddish tones, I was like, I already have the Naked Heat, so I don't need to keep this one around. I prefer the Urban Decay quality over the Essence quality still, even though this was good. So not one I'm missing yet again. It was warm toned. It was from the Warm Tone 2016, sort of everything was warm toned kind of deal. I didn't need this in my life then. I don't need it again now. And then this one may be a little bit surprising. I had completely forgotten I owned this. So again, I'll pop a picture up on the screen. This was another holiday travel purchase for me because it was the Sephora and Pantone Universe palette that was around. So I bought this on a trip, I think, was it 2012? Anyways, I traveled to the United States and I knew I wanted to pick up a beautiful, cool eyeshadow palette for myself that trip to commemorate it and to have something to take home, and I picked this. This was really, really early on in the makeup game, so I definitely picked this up off of a recommendation of a store employee, and because I couldn't pick, like, you had like the old Kat Von D, like the little, like, what is it called again? Like those older Kat Von D palettes before she got like the Monarch and stuff, before that brand was doing that. It was like height of Urban Decay Naked palette, but that one I had. And I remember that Lorac was still in Sephora when I picked this palette up. So that was a long time ago, people, because Lorac hasn't been in Sephora for quite some time. And they did this palette, and I thought I liked the colors, and it looked really pretty. I believe the design was supposed to represent a laptop, which I thought was cute. But this was so terrible. This was such bad eyeshadow. I actually remember reviewing this. And I was raving about it at the time because I hadn't really tried all that much yet. And it did have payoff, but in hindsight, it was just really chalky. It was difficult to blend. It flew everywhere. And every look I did turned it out looking like it just turned looking into a creamsicle every single time. It was these really pretty pastely shades though. So it was like I had fun playing with this, and part of me was like, I kept it around a makeup memory box for a while because of the trip and the memories I had attached to it. But then my makeup memory box just started to overflow, and I had to cut some things from my collection anyways. And I was like, might as well get rid of this one. The memories are nice. I don't have to keep this around. I still have the pictures up on my blog, and I have the memory of using this. So yeah, this was a nice one. It taught me a lot about when makeup is actually good and when it isn't. And just because something is expensive, it doesn't mean it's also good quality makeup. So yeah, again, not one I miss one bit at all. I have so many other shadows now that I like so much better, and especially within the pastel category, which can be difficult to get right, but I just have things I like better now. Speaking of Urban Decay, I've mentioned them a couple of times already. I did declutter pretty much all of my Urban Decay eyeshadow palettes in the past couple of years, so they are still in a box in my closet because that was the makeup collector in me getting these palettes. And I used to own the original Urban Decay shadow box. Who remembers this thing? This is still in my house. I haven't, like, it's no longer part of my makeup collection, but it's still sitting in a box somewhere. And it was such a, like, this was early palette days when color stories weren't a thing, when brands weren't thinking of, like, how does the look come together. This was just, like, their best shades in one palette, and I think it was supposed to be like a limited edition, but they kept this thing around for years. Like, I think for like 5 years you could buy it, and then they finally phased it out very quietly. And it still, till this day, has some really good shades in it. It has a purple called Fishnet, which is one of the most classic Urban Decay shades they ever did. I actually had a friend who I went to the US with back in 2009, and she picked this up as a single at the time because purple is her favorite shade. So I remember that. And the green called Graffiti in this was really, really pretty as well. It had Underground, which is also an eyeliner I had by them. So this is like classic Urban Decay. You couldn't do like one look with it because everything had shimmer and the shades were completely random. But yeah, would I miss this if I'm no longer using it. It's super old. I bought this back in like 2010 or 2011. It's definitely one of the oldest makeup bits in my house. So no, I wouldn't use it from that perspective, and it's not something I'm missing because of the fact that it didn't really have a color story. I nowadays like my eyeshadow palettes to at least be usable, and if they don't really have a color story that comes together for me, I always knock it down a notch. And finally, the Catrice Superbia Volume 2. They did a Volume 1, which was like neutrally warm toned, and then they did the Volume 2, which I think was part of their standard collection, which was like more grays and pinks and more on the cool toned level. This had some really pretty shades in, but this was similar in terms of quality when it comes to like the Sephora Pantone universe. It was chalky, it was very light, there was barely any pigmentation at all. This was not the good quality that I know Catrice can do, which is why I decluttered it, and I'm really not missing it. Like, Essence and Catrice can do really good things, but I end up decluttering so much by them because A, they release new things all the time, and 2, it's very rare that they do something that really stands out to me because I have tried so many eyeshadows by them. So it's very hard for them to beat it. And then the things I truly love, like the color story that's super unique and the quality that's very much on point, those are the things that I keep in my makeup collection for years until they do something that I like better. But I don't need to keep around all of the Essence and Catrice stuff I end up trying because most of it is not that great. And 2, when they do the great things, it needs to be better than the things I already have, which is very rare. So that's why Essence and Catrice are always victims in my decluttering series, and I don't miss this one at all. I think I'm actually glad it's gone. So there you have it. Those were 10 eyeshadow palettes I wanted to chat about with you today. I don't think there was a single regret in this entire list because makeup has just moved on, and you know, you can't keep things around forever as well. So these were all good decisions to get rid of. So let me know in a comment down below if there are any palettes that you regret decluttering. I would love to know. And for now, I would like to thank you very much for watching this video today. Stay tuned because I make regular videos over on this channel, and the entire week from Christmas till New Year's will be daily videos because I'm doing my end of year favorites, and I just had many more categories that I wanted to chat about with you than I do other years. So we're going to be doing a best of makeup according to me very soon. So I hope you'd like to stay tuned for that, and then I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.